Good morning. Welcome, everyone. So great to see multiple people here present. Thank you for taking the time to join. This is our kind of orientation webinar for the Pathfinder call. It's the fourth call of the Regenerative Community Fund that Equileaf has been managing. And yeah, we're offering this session today to introduce more the call, share what it's all about, give a bit of context, give you also guidance and relevant information regarding eligibility, the role, the activities, also the application process. So I have here with me also two colleagues, Chiara and Jofi.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining.
We're also here to support with the presentation and to answer questions. And yeah, my name is Laura. I work as a network weaver for Equileaf, and I'm part of the Funding for a Future team, mainly to support with networking and capacity building, and for an intermediate period, helping to coordinate the project. So I'm really happy to be with you this morning. I'm gonna share the screen for some slides we have. Let me put this on. All right. And maybe also to share if at any moment something is really not clear, you can also raise your hand or write something in the chat. We'll monitor that as we go through the content. So we can make sure you're all with us and understanding the different elements. And as I said, we start here with the orientation webinar. A little overview. First, we're going to introduce the Regenerative Community Fund and also the Funding for a Futures project, and present the call for Pathfinders. Maybe you can, Kara, if you can put a message in the chat asking who have read the call text, and if you have read it, give it a thumbs up, okay, on the chat. No judgment, just to check, you know, how much we're going to cover and explain or summarize. So just as a little interaction. And then we're going to also explain a bit more the application process itself and the different documents, give you really good guidance so you know everything that you need to know to submit a good application, should it fit for you to apply for this program. We're going to share briefly also about the national hubs, because we're working in 5 countries. So they're also supporting the coordination on a national level. Well, we aim to have breakout rooms to really have more space and time to interact and ask questions and do that. And then we'll come back for some final sharing, reflections, and attending to any unanswered questions. So first of all, the Regenerative Community Fund. This was an idea long in the making in many ways in Equileaf, but really launched in 2024 and has a strong focus to support regenerative local communities in Europe, and combining a few different elements of support. So funding, but also capacity building, joint advocacy work, networking, and collaboration opportunities. So the idea is that this becomes a long-term initiative that Equileaf stewards together with the network. At the moment, with the Funding for a Futures project, we basically have a chance to do a prototype or a pilot. And the aim is to catalyze more local citizen engagement, more community-led initiatives to work on regeneration, environmental and climate action, and also contribute towards a just eco-social transition. And the main pathways to do that is the kind of seed funding, like this call for Pathfinders that's providing seed funding, but also training and collaboration opportunities to help strengthen the capacities of community initiatives, and to also really nurture a kind of network or ecosystem of national network hubs that we're working with, of demonstrator communities who are already quite seasoned and experienced, who can offer support, and then Pathfinder, the kind of emergent communities joining this ecosystem as well, and to use the networks and outreach that we have together to really activate and involve groups of citizens who who are maybe otherwise not so easily engaged. We've already done 4 calls in 2025 and one already in 2026. So we have the hubs, the demonstrators, and 50 Pathfinders already with us. They joined in April, and you can find on the web pages like profiles to learn, to have a sense of who these other groups are, if that, you know, maybe an inspiration for you, or ways to also connect with like-minded or geographically close initiatives. Feel free to check that out. And then also we have the current open call for another 50 Pathfinder communities that will work with us over a little bit over a year and receive also the small seed funding of 4,000 euros. So as just a short context on the funding for a future project, where that's an EU-funded project that Equilease is one of the consortium partners of, together with 5 other organizations that you see the logos and name there. It's led by the Climate Action Network Europe, and brings bigger networks together that also have more specific focus areas. So Equilease, with our focus on local community initiatives, Women Engaged for Common Futures with a strong gender perspective, and youth, women empowerment, Generation Climate Europe focused on youth, and the Christian Blind Mission focused a lot on, well, blind, but actually in general, people with disabilities. And the initiative is really focused on providing capacity building and financial support for different civil society organizations and groups to deliver awareness raising, campaigning, advocacy, and citizen engagement projects, and together work for an inclusive and transformative climate justice. This project was started in 2024 and will end in 2028, so it's a 4-year project. This is, if you haven't seen it, we can recommend it as a short video that we've created for the Pathfinder call. Let me actually see if I can play this. I might not, I don't know how the sound will work. Maybe Chiara, can you hear it?
Just oh yeah, it's just a bit low video.
Otherwise, I can check. Usually. Should be better now. Let's see.
Pathfinders don't just follow the road. Pathfinders listen to the land, to the people, to the quiet pulse of what is emerging. They start the path where others might only imagine the destination, with small steps, uncertain at first, but brave, because they know change begins here, in the shared sense of belonging. Pathfinders see regeneration not as a dream, but as daily action. They are community builders, keepers of hope, guardians of the stories yet to come. They turn challenges into opportunities, and differences into strengths. Every step finds courage and community. Together, we can walk further. Join the movement. Regenerate the future.
All right. Gratitude for the video production at this point. You can see it's an inspiring little clip. Feel free to share that. So now specifically about the Pathfinder call and the Pathfinder community role. So what do we mean by Pathfinder communities? So we mean innovative, inclusive, community-led initiatives that work on climate action, environmental and local regeneration. This is specifically a call for smaller scale and locally rooted organizations or groups who work directly with local communities and who want to develop their activities, get the support and be strengthened through joining the program. We ask that groups in some way contribute to a just and inclusive transition and bring in, regenerative and environmental elements into their project work. And also that they are interested to learn and exchange and build capacities together, so that you're interested to really join, this ecosystem of peer support and collaboration. And also particularly, we're inviting groups who work with communities, groups of people that are more marginalized, either led by such groups, working with or in service of marginalized groups. And also we encourage applications from local communities who are facing socioeconomic or structural challenges and who actively work to address these different barriers to inclusion. The specific objectives for Pathfinder communities is to implement your local citizen-led action. This can be more small scale, experimental, and to take part in capacity building, training, and coaching activities, to receive the support, to also connect and be part of a wider community-led movement in Europe, build alliances, connect with other stakeholders, and also with policymakers to strengthen the kind of collective influence we have, to contribute towards shared campaigns and network-wide storytelling, to amplify community voices and bring more visibility. So by being featured as one of the Pathfinder stories, you help that, and to reach and meaningfully engage communities with higher levels of deprivation and systemic exclusion. And as Pathfinder communities, you would be joining the program in autumn. There's overlap between the two, let's say, clusters of 50 Pathfinder communities. So you'll interact, but also interact with the demonstrators and the hubs, and as relevant with other Equities members, to really be part of a wider network here. Some of the key activities for Pathfinder communities is, one, to really implement your local project idea. So this is the part for you to be creative and innovative and share what is some of the amazing work that you're doing and that you want to implement and apply for as a kind of project idea. And also consider what kind of support, training, learning that you may need, that you can build into your project. But that's the main part, what this 4,000 euro small grant is for. And then, as I said, part of the activities is also to join trainings, webinars, networking opportunities, and be part of a community of practice with other organizations, to learn from each other and collaborate. Part of it is also to organize a local policy dialogue, as to connect with local policy makers, institutions, local government, as part of the European Day of Sustainable Communities. This is always organized in September. There's going to be now coming up one September 2026, but you would be joining the program basically after that. So would be doing an event in September 2027 next year, alongside others organizing these policy dialogues. To share a story, we would ask to have at least one story of each project, of each community, that can be shared as part of the European Day of Sustainable Communities campaign, but also to exemplify local communities taking action for a just transition, and to be featured in the online repository that we have. And take part in the kind of campaigning and spreading the message as well. At this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Chiara to share a bit more about eligibility. This is a good moment to listen up, because this defines if you fit the program and is basically the foundation, to then consider and build your application.
Exactly. Thank you, Lara. So yes, please listen carefully, take some notes, and if you have any specific questions, like regarding the status of organization, then we can discuss later in a Q&A section of this webinar. But first, a recap of the eligibility criteria, because of course we want your proposal to be aligned with the objectives of the community of the Pathfinder, so what Laura just shared, and aligned with the FFF project in general. But there's a list of eligibility criteria that it's sort of a checklist that we'll do before assessing even, their whole proposal. So if your proposal doesn't meet these criteria, unfortunately, we cannot continue with the evaluation of it. So this is very, very important. So the first would be that the applicant must be either a legally registered non-profit organization or a community group, which is not registered. So that's what we call sometimes an unregistered group or informal group. If you are a legally registered organization, then you must be a civil society organization or an association of civil society organizations that are constituted and registered according to your national law. We will, at some point, if you're selected, ask for your registration number. So you need to have it and to be registered nationally. If instead you are a community group that is not formally registered yet, you must submit also the declaration on group representation, which is linked in the call for proposals, and we will see that in more details later. And only at the contracting stage, we will also ask you to sign a memorandum of understanding with a fiscal host. So it's not requested at the application stage, but please start thinking about a fiscal host who might be suitable for you, because then at the contracting stage, otherwise we'll spend a lot of time waiting for confirmation, and we're very concerned about that. So these are the two options. You can apply either if you are a non-profit organization, established, or an informal group. Then your organization and your project must be based in one of the 5 eligible countries, which are Croatia, Finland, France, Portugal, and Spain. This is also very important. And then your project, your organization, your group must be working with local place-based communities, because that's the scope of this call. And then you shouldn't be a current or past beneficiary of a grant of the European Commission's DR program, which is the same program this call comes from. So this cannot be replicated. Again, connected to the EU DR program, you shouldn't have the financial, administrative, or operational capacity to compete directly in this kind of programs. You shouldn't be expecting to receive financial support in the short future. And then you need to ensure that the financial support is used for the action and aligns with the thematic priorities. This is something we will check, for example, through your budget proposal and complement it with your narrative proposal. And then you need to comply with the EU due diligence requirements, which is something you will confirm when submitting the declaration on exclusion criteria also. One important note is that you need to apply as a sole organization, as consortia are ineligible for the call. And Laura, if you can go to the next slide, maybe it's slightly better explained, because here I've listed like the most common reasons for ineligibility for the past calls. We gathered them all.
Exactly. This is your cheat sheet. Listen
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
If you listen to this and don't make the mistake, you're in a good position to pass the eligibility.
Exactly. The first, as I said, the applicant organization, if you are a for-profit entity, so if you're not non-profit, then you cannot apply. You will be excluded immediately. We know that there are some companies, so for-profit companies, that still reinvest the profit for regenerative practices, etc. But unfortunately, this is a strict criteria, and so despite the flexibility that we can talk about, we cannot allow you to participate in this call. And there are many other funds that maybe could be suitable for you, but this one, unfortunately, it's not. Then the organization and the project must be based, as I said, in one of the eligible countries. If it's not, then you're not eligible. It happened, for example, that it was, I don't know, a Croatian organization, for example, so an organization based in an eligible country, but then the project would happen in another country, non-eligible. That's not possible. The organization and the project must happen in one of the eligible countries. Then, as I said, it happened that the application was submitted by a consortium, so the co-applicants, and this is again not possible. It must be submitted by one leading organization. Then, of course, you might have experts in some events or webinars coming from other organizations, which you would contract as experts, but you cannot simply outsource the core activities or the core implementation of the project to another organization. Otherwise, of course, you can imagine then the other organization would be the applicant, right? Then it happened also that documents were submitted in the wrong format. Sometimes this doesn't affect too much the readability, etc. But when it affects the readability, then unfortunately we cannot proceed with assessing the application. So please make sure that everything is uploaded in the right way. It's always indicated in the application form, and we'll also recap it later. Then also please make sure that the project duration falls between the limits of this call, which is 13 months for the Pathfinders. So sometimes we received applications with projects that were either too short or too long. So this is also not possible. And then if you are an informal group, we need to make sure that your group is composed by at least 3 members. If your group has fewer than 3 members, then again, it's not eligible. Also, the funding requested, it cannot exceed the maximum eligible amount, which is 4,000 for Pathfinders. You can have projects with budget higher than 4,000, but you need to indicate the extra, let's say, as co-funding. It means that you have other sources to co-finance that part. And either ways, it must fall within the limits of 1,000 to 10,000 euros. Can be more than 10,000. And then sometimes in the budget, there are costs related to ineligible activities. That's also not possible. All the instructions are in the budget proposal. There's an example and instructions tabs. Please read them carefully, and then Jofi will explain them better later. And finally, please also make sure that all the annexes you submit are complete. Because if we miss key information, we cannot proceed with the applications. So this is a bit of a recap of the most common mistakes and what you should pay attention to. Then if you have any other questions, please take notes, and we will have a dedicated section afterwards. You can continue, Laura. I think there was maybe another slide. Yes. So on the application process, these are the key steps. First, read carefully the call for proposal, because we know maybe it's a bit long, around 10 pages, but please, all the info are there. So make sure you read that carefully. And then you need to download all the annexes that are listed here. I put this as a note. Remember that you cannot edit directly these templates. You need either to download them or make a copy to your drive and then edit them. If you try to edit them, you would receive a message back from me saying, sorry, this is not possible. You should proceed otherwise. We will look into all these annexes in detail in the next slide with my colleague Jofi. Then once you have filled in and completed all these documents, you need to upload them via this registration application form that is linked here, is linked also in the call, of course. And all the documents needs to be submitted in English. For the narrative proposal, you can also submit a copy of it in your national language. This would be read by our national hubs, so organizations from your country that, of course, know your language. So if you don't feel too comfortable in English and you want to add some details in your national language, you can submit both versions, one in English and one in your national language, only for the narrative proposal. Then in the application form, you also have a submission checklist. So at the end, you will make sure that you submitted everything needed for the application, and then that's done, and you just need to wait to hear back from us. If you have further questions or you need further support with your applications, beyond this meeting today, we will have an open office hour on the 9th of June in the afternoon between 3 to 4 p.m. Central European Time. There's the registration link here, but also on our webpage, of course. Then also your national hubs, so national hubs in your countries will organize info sessions. Some of them have already happened, some others, they're in the upcoming days. So please check our webpage. You will find more information there and also the links to register. Then if you still have questions, or maybe there are specific questions regarding your specific situation, you can send them to this email address, rcf@ecolis.eu. Please do it until 17th June. so that we still have a few days to reply back to you, because the call closes on the 22nd of June. This is a key information. So, and since we might receive a high number of questions, please be patient and understanding that it might take us a few days to reply, but we will get back as soon as possible. In this slide, you'll find also the link to the webpage that you probably already saw, but yeah, so make sure you read everything and you apply by the 22nd of June. Thank you. And I'll pass it to Jofi for some more details on the documents.
Yeah, and maybe we can have, so this is just the overview again, no, of all the different documents. And maybe actually I'll just briefly share how this looks like practically. And then Jofi, you can explain some of the specifics. So I'll just, and Chiara, maybe you can put the link also in the chat. But just to say, this is the main web page for the call that is a great landing point where you find all the information. So it explains it. You can find here really the call text. So this is then the PDF that Chiara talked about that we really ask you to read because it explains everything. So, and all the details, the objectives. This is also in a way, it mimics the same information we had on the slides. So again, all the information is here. Please read it. We also have the information translated in all the 5 national languages. So please use that, for yourself, for other groups that you know, to share it. The video is there, a short summary, and then also the frequently asked question document, which has a lot of answers. So again, if there's something you're not quite sure about, please consult the document. It's very likely answered there. We've collected basically all the questions we've received so far and put them in the document. So this is a really good resource. The open office hour that Chiara mentioned is there, and you can register for that session. We really encourage you that by that time, you've started working on your application, and then you can see what kind of questions emerge, as you're working on things, and bring those kind of questions to the open office hour session. And then, as we said, also there's calls and support in all the different countries, in the languages. So please also take a note of that, again, for yourself or for other groups that might be interested to participate in. As I said, the frequently asked document, many questions. And then we have an application form, which also has a link to where all the documents are. So this is a resource folder, now that has all the documents, what Chiara mentioned. So you can find them here and then download them to fill them out, okay? But all the annexes, all the things you need are there. Jofi, do you want to share your own screen to show things, or you want me to do it for you?
Yeah, I can share.
Okay, so basically here's the place where you need to do all the work for applying, and we're gonna give you some more guidance for this process.
Thank you, Laura. All right, then I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so here you can see a list of all the documents you need to submit together with your application. The first annex is the narrative proposal, where basically you need to describe your project in more detail. There are different sections. It's quite straightforward. It's a Word document, but you will need to save it as a PDF. And the narrative proposals must be written either in English, if you feel confident enough to write the whole proposal in English, or you can write it in your national language, but in this case, you also need to provide an English translation. So organizations that are not so confident in English, they are usually using a translation tool. It's really up to you. It can be a relatively simple translation, because the national hubs who speak your national language, they will help us to check if the content is clear. But basically, for the Ecolis team, it's also important to have everything in English because we are looking at them and we are not always speaking all the languages. So yeah, either in English or national language and an English copy. Then there is also a budget proposal. This is an Excel file, and this needs to be submitted in Excel format. And the language is also English, so please add all information in English. The format is important because in some cases we need to do very small adjustments, for example, just moving a line to another category. And in many cases, it's easier for me to do it and then send you an updated form than asking you to correct it and you send it back to me. So it's important for us to be able to edit the spreadsheets. So this you just need to fill in all the different tabs, no need to sign. I don't know, Laura, if I should open the template and show it now, or we just...
Yeah, I think you could show, I mean, not everything, but I think maybe the budget proposal is good to show. And maybe the informal group one briefly, and the one what was the other one that
Maybe
we
the
had several, the
declaration.
declaration, exactly, because that I think also there were several mistakes. So we're just gonna share it all now so you can easily pass all those.
Yeah. Okay. So the budget, for those who are not so familiar with this structure, there is an information tab at the beginning where you can really find all the information. It's a detailed description of about how you need to fill it in, what is the information you need to add, what are the small details you need to pay attention to. It also includes information about the structure, the co-financing. As Kiara mentioned before, co-financing is not mandatory, but in case you submit a budget which is higher than 4,000 euro, the maximum grant that you can request remains 4,000 and everything else must be co-financed. You can also find a list here about the eligible costs and which are the non-eligible costs. Typical mistakes, for example, that people add the lump sums. So it means, for example, that you want to organize 3 events and you ask for 3,000 euro as one item. But in this case, you rather need to separate and indicate one budget line item for each event and specify what exactly you want to use the money for. Or for example, you cannot ask for materials for all the events and the whole project for 5,000 euros. So you need to break it down and specify what exactly you want to buy, for what. Another tricky part is building materials. For example, some applicants want to use the grant for building fans or a building that they want to use. This is rather considered as ineligible. So smaller building materials may be eligible, but in general, we don't recommend to include this kind of costs. You can include materials, for example, for workshops, for gardening and these kind of things. In-kind contributions. This is a very typical mistake that we see. In-kind contributions means that someone is supporting you without asking for money. They don't issue any invoice, so there is no paperwork behind it. They just, for example, a local organization offers the venue for you. This is fine, but you cannot add it to the budget as with the value because you cannot prove it with documentation. There is no agreement behind it. So, and in this project, we need to justify everything with documents. Well, for Pathfinders, it's a bit more simple, but you can also be asked by an audit to provide the justification. Or for example, cash contributions. This type of costs are not eligible. The only in-kind contribution that is eligible is volunteer work. So you can use the grant to remunerate volunteer contributions. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into details, but you can see here many instructions. And this is the budget template itself. So there are different budget categories, and it's important to add each item to the proper category. There is a section for human resources where you can indicate salaries, volunteer remuneration, and per diem is also considered as a human resource cost in this project. And per diems normally cover local subsistence, or like food, local transport, and accommodation. Then we have a different category for international and national travel, where you can add costs of train tickets to another city, bus, flight, and so on. Equipment and supplies. This is where you can indicate different equipment or materials that you may need for your activities and your project. You can also add costs of renting an office space for the duration of the project, and purchase office supplies. Or for example, you can also use the grant for paying an accountant who is helping with you with the accounts. And there is also a category for other costs and services, for example, publications. If you want to create any visual material, you can add here the experts, the one that Kiara talked about, the basically subcontractors, external experts that you want to subcontract for a specific task, for example, facilitating a workshop. But this is one very specific task. And yeah, it's important again to highlight that key project activities can be delivered only by the key staff. So, for example, coordination or general communication cannot be outsourced to external partners. Also, the cost of events belongs here. You can add one line item for each event that you want to organize. And you will need to add the unit number for each item, the number of units, unit total cost. So this is how the cost is calculated. And we also explain in the information sheet that please add the clarification on the budget item, because we receive many budget proposals with empty information here. So in the first column, you just add the very short description. For example, project manager at 5% FTE. And in the last column, you can explain what that person will do, what exactly that item means, when is it relevant. And you can find here a budget example for how the budget should look like if all the information is provided. So you can also take a look at this. And on the summary sheet, this is mainly relevant for you if you provide co-financing. So if you fill in the budget template correctly, then this summary will be correctly updated. And for example, if the total cost is higher than 4,000, you need to indicate here what is the amount that you request. It can be also 3,900. So it doesn't have to be exactly 4,000, but it can be maximum 4,000. And the rest will be co-financing. So this is the budget template, and I'm gonna go back to the presentation. Declaration of exclusion criteria. So depending on whether you are a registered organization or an informal group, you will need to fill in this in a different way. If you are a registered organization, you need to fill in the top right part and the table at the bottom with the organization details. This is an example. I want to make it bigger. So yeah, there are two sections on the top, one at the left and one at the right. If you are a registered association, for example, you need to fill in only the right part: full name, official form, registration number, official address, and VAT number if you have any. And then you just fill in the table at the bottom. Here, it can be a bit misleading because it says name of the legal person, but in this case, the legal person is the legal entity, so the organization name. And again, you put here the address, the contact details, and this is where you put the name of the responsible person, so the person who is legally representing the organization, the one who has the legal right to sign contracts, for example. You can indicate here the position and the signature and the date. So this is for registered groups. And then for unregistered group is a bit more simple because in this case you don't have a full official name, official legal form, official address. You just have an informal group with an appointed group leader. So in this case, there is nothing to add to this place, and you can just indicate the ID or passport number of the group representative person on the left part, as this example also shows. And again, you can fill in the table on the last page. And in this case, the name of the legal person is the name of the group representative. And to the address, so everything, all the information you see here must be related to the leader, the group leader. So the group leader's address, contact details, position, and the date. But if you open these examples, you can find, this very straightforward instructions. I think this is one of the most tricky document that many applicants fail to complete correctly. So this is why we added some extra information and examples. We also have another declaration form. It's a bit more simple, declaration of honor. This is quite similar for both informal groups and registered groups. Here, you just need to indicate the name of the person signing the contract and representing the organization name or group name. And you can add here the project title, which is the same that you indicate in the narrative proposal, and add signature and the date. So this is quite simple. And then the declaration of group representation. This is only needed if you are an unregistered group. This must also be submitted in English. And you always need to provide the name of the group. So you need to find a name for your group. The appointed representative's name, and minimum 3 group members. And one of the 3 members can be the group representative itself. But it's important to indicate clearly who are members of the group. I'm also sharing an example. This is also like a 2-page document. And basically, you need to indicate here the group name. There is a table for the details of the representative of the group with some basic personal information. And this is where you can indicate the group member names. So you always need to add at least 3. and one of them should be the group leader. So for example, if you had 2 people, then we were like not sure if it's 3 people and you just forgot to add the third one or so. It's difficult to accept because we need to clarify it and we have many applications and it's quite challenging to do all these small clarifications. So thanks if you can pay attention to this. And it's important also to know that all the instructions are provided in the frequently asked questions documents. So we really strongly recommend to read this document carefully. Yeah, you can probably find here answers for most of the questions. You can find the link in the PPT.
Thanks, Geoffrey. I think
Yeah.
that's it. Now, several of these documents also need to be signed, so make sure to do that. And all these declarations and forms is just to follow instructions. All the instructions are there. Don't be creative, please, on these forms to sign and fill out. Where you should be creative is your project idea, no? And to present an inspiring, innovative idea. This is the part to be creative, to show who you are and the great work that you're doing, that you want to do. And the other forms, just follow the instructions. It saves us a lot of trouble, and we love to, pass projects that have good ideas. But if you're failing on these formal elements, it's not really possible, no? So good if you pay attention to that. And I hope you can see it also, embrace it as a kind of capacity building, because this is still an EU-funded project. So fortunately, unfortunately, we have the funding to sub-grant, but we also need to follow these type of structures and processes. Yes, I think that's it, no? In the application process. So as we said, like you have all the forms to download, to work on, and then just an application form where you will upload all the different filled out documents and submit it before the deadline. So we're just gonna share some final information, and then we have breakout rooms prepared. So you can interact and ask some more questions. So just very briefly, this is also explained more in the call text. This is an overview of this main selection criteria that we're using. So once you pass the eligibility, this is what will happen during the evaluation. We will evaluate the relevance. This is specifically in relation to the role of the Pathfinder communities, how well this fits, but also the objectives of specifically the Pathfinders and the required activities, as well as the overall Regenerative Community Fund program. The potential impact, we're looking at what is the environmental and climate impact you can reach, the social impact, how innovative and creative is your idea, what kind of impact potential does it have, the coherence of the design. So this is both the narrative proposal and the budget proposal, and how they make sense together. If you have activities that the funding matches that, so we will evaluate that. Also the clarity of how you can present your ideas, the implementation plan, etc. We will also evaluate the capacity and credibility. This is quite light for Pathfinder communities because this call is specifically meant for new and emerging local groups. No? So we don't expect that you have a track record of 20 years, but that you demonstrate that you are motivated and you have some of the right people in your group able to carry out the project activities that you plan. And then the last 15% is the added value for funding for our futures. This is also related to that you fit the Pathfinder role, and this type of small funding is actually needed and relevant for you, and that you can benefit from it, and that there is a potential of a sustainability beyond the funding period. And the note here that we are going to look at climate and environmental impact. So even if your project has a stronger, maybe social component, it would be great if you can demonstrate and explain that, because it's an important part for the Pathfinders. I think we've explained most of this, Chiara, so I think we can keep it quite short. We've already shared with the website, another open office hour, and also all the national hubs that organize sessions. We've mentioned the frequently asked question document at least 5 times. Please consult it, and the email address to write questions. No, and you see here, I think some people also ask about timeline. So maybe this is a brief thing that you can just see. So we have now the orientation webinar, 26th of May, 9th of June, the open office hour. Also in these next weeks are all the other national sessions that will be in the national languages. The call closes on the 22nd of June. And then we'll take the time to do eligibility checks and evaluation processes. We might ask some questions if there's small clarifications during August. So if you can, makes sense to at least once in a while check your emails, and then we'll reach out to selected Pathfinder groups in early September and go into the contracting stage, which we aim to do in September. So then projects start officially from October onwards and go for the 13 months. Okay. I think that's it. Well, if you're curious about the more national context, we have descriptions of the 5 national hubs that are already collaborating with us for over a year that you can explore. This can also help because it gives you a context for the kind of collaboration and exchanges that are also possible here. So I'm gonna stop my screen share here. And check that we have everybody in breakout rooms. Okay. All right. We have the breakout rooms. So this will be an opportunity. We're just gonna split the group. We have mixed participation from different countries, so we're just gonna have it mixed groups for now. But as we said, if you want to also join some of the national webinars for support, you're welcome to do that. And this is your opportunity to ask more specific questions. So we're gonna have the breakout rooms. I think we can do around 20, a little bit more than 20 minutes to explore any questions. We'll split up with our Equiles team. So Chiara, Jofi, and I will be each in one of the breakout groups as well, if there's some questions to answer. And then we'll come back, okay? I'm gonna open the rooms. Okay. I think everybody is back. You see the numbers have reduced of people. Thank you for sticking around, and I hope the breakout room was useful to share a little bit, to ask some questions. Since we're not so many people left, but we still have a bit of time, I would love to actually just do a short round, or maybe first to check, I don't know, Chiara or Jofi, was there any key things from your room that is important to share with everybody? But otherwise, my idea was just to do a round. If you still have any question, you can share that. Or otherwise, you could just briefly share like who you are, what you're working on. And, you know, if you have any next steps, if you say, yes, we're going to apply, or no, but it's great to hear, whatever, we can kind of do a round just to hear from everybody briefly before we complete. But I'm checking with my colleagues, Chiara, Jofi, if that sounds good, or if you're bringing anything from your little group discussion.
Maybe there is one final question that I received just before coming back to the main session, which is about developing websites. And that is a non-eligible cost, right? I want to confirm with Jofi as well, which is our admin expert. And also, I think it's important for everyone because we had to exclude a few organizations in the previous round due to this. So, yeah, right, Jofi, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Well, it's not accepted as the main activity. So you can use part of the funding for some maintenance or some small developments, but it shouldn't be the main action. Yeah.
Important clarification. Hope that's clear now.
Okay, great.
Well, in my group, I think there are two topics that could be relevant for everyone. One of us about the constitution of the informal group. For example, can local council members be part of the informal group? And yeah, normally it's okay as long as they are not affiliated with the council in the application documents. I mean, they should always act as members of the informal group and not as members of the council. And I also mentioned that it's important that there are no overlaps between fiscal host and group members. So it should be a different organization. But if you are in an informal group and you want to receive a salary, you will need to sign a contract with the fiscal host. So the fiscal host will be kind of the employer because you need to sign some kind of document in order to receive salary from that entity.
Yeah, great. And that's a good clarification. We certainly had that in the past. So the fiscal host is really just there to manage money, no? They're not involved in any activities. So it's best if it's, separate and clear like that. And then the informal group themselves will be the, mainly in charge of carrying out the work.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for bringing that. Yeah, Zola, I see your hand.
Just when we are talking about the host, financial host, fiscal host, does this organization has to also be a non-profit or association, or it can be all sorts of legal entities?
I think in the FAQ document we have a list of type of organizations that are normally accepted as fiscal hosts. So this can be NGOs, even local authorities like municipalities or universities, research institutions, cooperatives, CSOs, but not for-profit companies. Yeah, even hubs and demonstrators can be fiscal hosts. We have some examples for Pathfinders whose fiscal host is one of the demonstrators. So that's also possible, but it's not ideal because it's difficult to prove that there are absolutely no overlap between these two, because demonstrators and Pathfinders also work together in some cases. So it's not ideal, but it's possible if you don't have any other option. And the second topic was about budget flexibility. And as I said that the general flexibility is 25% between the main budget categories. So like between HR, travel, and other direct costs, you can move maximum 25% by the end of the project. But if you need to move little amounts or there is an activity not foreseen before, for example, we proposed one budget line for travel, but then there are other travel needs. We can add this new budget line during the implementation, but if we add new budget lines, we always need to move money from another line because we cannot change the overall budget amount. So if you want to apply any changes, then you can just send me an email and we can update the budget plan together.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Jofi.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for, bringing your ideas, for considering to join the program, for asking questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we really welcome, no, the different groups. For us, I would say at Equileads, it's really exciting to be able to work with so many different groups and people. It's always a pity that we can't fund, and include everybody. But also, some of the webinars and exchanges are also open, even if you're not selected. And we always love to, keep in touch. And it's a real joy to have so much grassroots community activities all around Europe. It's amazing. So really great to have you here and for all the work that you're doing in your territories with your communities. Also, thank you for the appreciation. It's good to hear that the information is clear and you can work with that. As I said, we wish you all the very best with your application. We try to provide all of the information so you can submit a really great application, and we will enjoy reviewing it and learning more about your work and your project. So best of luck, and also the time that you take to develop some ideas with your groups is really meaningful. As we said before, this is the part to be creative, to really think about what would be meaningful things that you can do. And then we provided all the support that you can tick all the boxes of the formal things and the declarations and the signatures. Yeah. Thank you also, Chiara and Jofi. Thank you so much for your support in the session today. And I think we can unmute and all say goodbye. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the
Thank
day.
you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good luck.